Tonight, I need you to do something for me. Turn down the lights, put on your headphones, and whatever you do, don't watch this alone. Because tonight, we're not just telling a story. We're stepping inside one of the most chilling accounts I've ever come across. This is the story of Emma's haunted house. It all began innocently enough. Emma and her husband, David, found their dream home, a beautiful, slightly run-down Victorian house on the outskirts of a quiet town. It had character, history, and more space than they could have hoped for. The price was almost too good to be true, and maybe that should have been the first warning sign. The seller was a little too eager to close the deal, mentioning that the house had been in his family for generations, but that it was time for new energy. Emma and David, swept up in the excitement, just chalked it up to an old man's sentimentality. The first few weeks were a whirlwind of unpacking boxers and painting walls. The house felt warm and welcoming. But then, the little things started. Keys would go missing from the hook by the door, only to reappear hours later in the middle of the kitchen table. They'd hear faint whispers, like a conversation happening, habitations away, but the house would be completely silent when they went to check. They blamed it on old pipes, the wind, and the stress of moving. It's easy to rationalize the unexplainable when you've just invested your life savings into a home. The first truly undeniable event happened about a month in. Emma was home alone, organizing the library. This room had wall-to-wall built-in bookshelves, and it was her favorite spot in the house. As she placed a book on a high shelf, she felt a sudden, icy gust of wind, even though all the windows were shut. Goosebumps erupted on her arms. Then she heard it. A distinct, soft sigh right behind her. She spun around, her heart pounding in her chest, but the room was empty. She tried to laugh it off, her own mind playing tricks on her, but as she turned back to the bookshelf, she saw it. One of the books, a heavy, leather-bound volume, slowly slid out from the shelf, hovered in midair for a second, and then crashed to the floor. Emma ran. She didn't stop until she was outside, gasping for breath on the front lawn. When David came home, he found her huddled on the porch steps, pale and trembling. He was skeptical, of course. He checked the bookshelf, the floorboards, looking for any logical explanation. He found none. He tried to comfort Emma, suggesting it was a draft, that the book was poorly balanced. But a seed of doubt had been planted, and it was about to grow. The activity escalated. The whispers became clearer. Sometimes they would hear their names. Emma, ... double quotes David, ... called out from an empty hallway. Doors would slam shut on their own, not just creaking closed, but slamming with a force that would rattle the entire house. They started waking up in the middle of the night to the sound of footsteps pacing back and forth in the attic, directly above their bedroom. The first time it happened, David, armed with a baseball bat, cautiously went to investigate. The attic was freezing cold, dusty, and utterly empty. But as soon as he closed the hatch and got back into bed, the footsteps started again. They were living in a constant state of low-grade fear. Sleep was a luxury they could rarely afford. Emma started seeing shadows darting in her peripheral vision, tall, slender figures that would vanish the moment she turned to look. One evening, as they were watching TV, the screen flickered and went black. In the reflection, for a split second, they both saw the figure of a woman standing behind their sofa. She was dressed in old-fashioned clothing, her face pale and her expression filled with sorrow. They whipped around, but there was nothing there. The air, however, was frigid. That was the first time they saw her. Desperate, Emma started researching the history of the house. She spent days at the local library, poring over old town records and newspapers. And that's when she found it. A tragedy from the late 1800s. The house had belonged to a family, the Carters. Mr. and Mrs. Carter and their young daughter, Elara. The newspaper article was brief, reporting a terrible accident. Elara, only 10 years old, had fallen from the attic window. But as Emma dug deeper, she found old town gossip and letters that told a different story. They said Mr. Carter was a cruel man, and that Elara's fall might not have been an accident. Her mother, heartbroken and consumed by grief, was said to have lost her mind. She would wander the house for hours, calling her daughter's name, refusing to believe she was gone. She passed away in the house just a few years later, reportedly of a broken heart. The spirit they had seen, the woman in the old-fashioned dress, wasn't a malevolent entity. It was a grieving mother, forever searching for her lost child. The whispers, the slamming doors, the footsteps, it was her restless energy, trapped within the walls of her pain. Understanding this changed everything, but it didn't stop the haunting. In fact, it seemed to intensify. They would hear a child's laughter echoing from the empty nursery, followed by the sound of a woman weeping. Toys they had packed away in the attic would appear arranged fattories in Elara's old room. It was as if their presence, their life, and happiness was a constant, painful reminder to the spirit of what she had lost. The entity wasn't trying to harm them. It was desperately trying to communicate its sorrow. One night, the activity reached its terrifying peak. Emma woke up, feeling like she was being watched. She opened her eyes, and standing at the foot of her bed was the spectral figure of Mrs. Carter. Her form was clearer than ever before. Her eyes, filled with an eternity of sadness, were locked on Emma. She didn't move. She just stood there, her presence sucking all the warmth from the room. Emma was frozen, not with fear, but with a profound sense of sorrow. The spirit slowly raised a translucent hand and pointed towards the door, her silent message, "Jenar you longt." Leave. David woke up to Emma's silent tears. They didn't need to discuss it. They knew they couldn't stay. The house wasn't theirs. It belonged to a memory, to a grief so powerful it had defied time itself. They packed a few bags that very night, leaving behind most of their belongings. As they walked out the front door for the last time, they both looked back. For a brief moment, they saw two figures in the upstairs window, a woman and a small child, standing side by side. Then they were gone. Emma and David never went back. They sold the house at a huge loss to a property developer who, they later heard, demolished it to build new, modern homes. Maybe that was the only way to finally let the spirits rest. Emma and David's story is a chilling reminder that some houses are more than just brick and mortar. They are containers of history, of emotion, and sometimes of tragedies that refuse to be forgotten. They are places where the past is not dead. It's not even past. What do you guys think? Could you live in a house with a history like that? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. This story really got to me, and I'd love to hear what you would have done in their situation. Thank you so much for joining me for this terrifying tale. If you enjoyed it and want to hear more stories that will keep you up at night, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss a new video. Stay safe, and whatever you do, Maybe leave a light on tonight. I'll see you all in the next one.